So I was planning on releasing the next regiment review video today, but I wanted to get some more interviews done before making the video public. But after seeing the interest in the last video I did on this topic, I thought I'd share 5 more roles for new players to perform in order to help their faction win every war. I tried picking roles that were niche or not widely known, but equally as important as many of the meta or more popular roles in the game. By the way, if you haven't seen the first video I did on this, you can check it out down in the description below. So with that, let's dive straight into the list, starting off with fuel running. Being a fuel runner is one of the most essential roles you can perform for your faction. Although it's often thankless, it's an overlooked need for every frontline and can easily make the difference for your tank crews. The process of being a fuel runner is simple. Go to a nearby oil field that's providing public fuel, go up to the crackling unit with a flatbed and oil container. Take a small train and pull petrol from the facility to your oil container. You can also put your container on a liquid transfer station, but that process is much slower than using a small train. Once your oil container is filled up, package it up, put it on your flatbed, and deliver it to the front line. Typically, most players who do this will put 5 of these liquid containers in an iron ship and deliver it to a seaport close to the front. This is why you see liquid containers on either side of the seaport filled with diesel or petrol. It's still a good idea to deliver a full canister to the front line as well. That way tanks and other vehicles don't have to leave their hex or drive very far to top off on fuel. Being a fuel runner is especially important for more expensive tanks like BTs and super heavies due to their reliance on heavy oil. If you can provide a liquid container or fuel runner of heavy oil to the front line, you'll provide an essential service to those tank crews, which could turn the tide of a frontline battle. Speaking of tanks, this leads us into our next role, frontline tank support. Most players are aware of the typical tank roles like driver, gunner, and commander, with some tanks requiring additional crew members to perform engineering duties as well. But the lesser known role of frontline tank support is a role any new player can perform, which would greatly improve the effectiveness of tanks on the front line. Tank support players will typically drive around in a transport truck or LUV like the Argonaut or Drummond. Their vehicles would be filled with B-mats, tank shells, or fuel, and they'd stick by their tanks performing repairs, putting additional shells into tanks running low on ammo, and refueling when their tanks are out of harm's way. But that's not all these frontline tank support players do. In addition to directly supporting their armor column, tank support players also use their B-mats to build watchtowers or pillboxes to provide vision and defense for their tanks. Additionally, when a friendly or enemy tank is destroyed and their ammo is dropped on the ground, these players will quickly gather any remains left in the wreckage and drive those recovered tank shells to the nearest bunker base. This helps alleviate the logistical burden for Logi players and gives tank crews who are still in the fight extra ammunition. If you want to help your tank crews perform more effectively than the enemies, then being a tank support player may be the right role for you. It's said that wars are won or lost by logistics alone, and we all know logistics in Foxhole is constantly needed in order to keep the war machine alive. One way new players can help their faction win on the logistical front is to create public orders in their mass production facilities, also known as MPFs. These MPF buildings are located in major logistical towns and give you bonuses the more crates you create in an order. The max queue size is 9 crates, and after a certain number of crates, you'll start to see a percentage discount for resources needed to complete the order. This is more economical than creating crates of ammo, guns, or other equipment. But this also extends to vehicles as well. If you look up the cost of a single tank in a garage versus what it comes out to when you create a full MPF order, you could be saving a good chunk of armaments and providing your faction with overwhelming firepower against the enemy. The next role can be considered one of the more important roles on this list, and it's helping out frontline artillery crews. This can be accomplished in several different ways, each being extremely important in ensuring your artillery is performing effectively. The first is simply loading shells. Sometimes players log out or arty crews don't have enough people to keep the guns running on a consistent basis. If you see an arty crew on the front line, ask if they need help with loading their guns. If they do, great, grab a shell with the nearest pallet and chuck that fucker in the arty gun. If they're good on loaders, they may ask for your help with defending their arty position, either by standing around with a gun or building up defenses like pillboxes. Arty positions are high value targets for enemy partisans, and they will stop at nothing to take out any and all arty guns if it means arty shells will stop falling on their faces. So if you notice your artillery position is lightly defended, offer to help build some pillboxes for them to strengthen those defenses. You can also help by placing barbed wire to slow down incoming sticky rushes and prevent enemy players from getting too close. Lastly, if an arty crew has enough loaders and they're set up in a defensible position, they could always use somebody to help drive a flatbed of pallets back and forth with more artillery shells. Most of the time, arty ops end with the artillery crew spending all of their shells. Luckily, there are plenty of front lines that have a facility with public 120mm for your arty crews to use. If you plan on supporting an artillery team, ask if they already have a stockpile of 120mm somewhere and offer to pick it up for them. Or ask if they know of any frontline facilities that are providing shells for the front line. It's important to remember that you don't need to perform just one of these duties when supporting arty crews. You can switch between each of these roles to maximize the impact you're providing for your faction. We're now at the last role, and I made sure to save the most impactful and best role for last. Fighting for your faction is just half the battle, but if you're not pissing people off on the subreddit with shitty LeBron James memes and softcore furry art, you're doing a disservice for your faction. Alts might be Haram and Foxhole, but if you don't have at least 5 different Reddit accounts upvoting your Callahan or Theo Morrow fan art, you're not playing this game to win. If you see enemy players crashing out on the front line, make sure you're recording that and posting it on the subreddit. Likewise, if you see somebody crashing out on the comments and they're on the enemy faction, make sure to take a screenshot and repost that shit. And don't forget to end every rebuttal with, "Why don't you touch some grass?" Foxhole isn't just a battle on the front line, it's a battle for the hearts and minds of the players who make the poor choice to play this game 10 hours a day, every day. And just remember, players like that are just one spicy Reddit post away from absolutely BTFOing and calling it quits for the rest of the war. As Sun Tzu once famously said, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." And brother, I think if Sun Tzu were alive today, he'd give every Reddit QRF Chad a firm handshake and a stamp of approval. And those were 5 more roles new players can do to help their faction win in every war. If you know any other roles, whether they're niche or widely known for new players to take on, make sure you leave them down in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like and subscribe to the channel for more Foxhole related content. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.
When I'm all alone with my dildo, I tend to get the dick dripping. I suck dick and I'm proud. I might suck a midget, and I'ma suck all this pain away, 'cause that's the only thing that's gonna help it. I don't understand these women who go around pretending as if I'm a straight nigga. I just suck him from a distance.